Let's go to Kevin Jordan, who says, when listening to 1960s music and studying the social and political movements of the time, my wife always opines that she was born in the wrong era. Is there an era that would find Bill Whittle more at home? Flying Spitfires during the Battle of Britain is too narrow to count. Um, yeah, I thought I would have, if I'd been born a little earlier, I would love to have been an astronaut, but those guys were already picked, and my vision wasn't good enough. I'm beginning to think now, strangely enough, that I'm actually born a little bit too early. I had, I had a real. I mean, when they shut down the space shuttle program, I said that's it. I don't think NASA. I personally don't think NASA's going to go back to space again. I don't think NASA's going to fly people in space again under things built by NASA. Um, but lately, with the SpaceX with the SpaceX vertical landing, and then Blue Origins did the same thing. The private space initiative is actually starting to gain enough steam, and I just wish I had a little more time. A Free Frontier is not finished, as I said. I've got these things in order. I do want to say something about common sense resistance after this, just very briefly. Let me write that down because I forget things. But all of a sudden, I'm starting to see things that I wish I was seeing in the 80s or the 70s. Some of these comets, some of these images of the comets and series and things are terrific. These are easily attainable. If all we could get over our terrifying, irrational fear of nuclear things, if we had an atomic rocket out there, we'd be able to go tomorrow. And that's hopefully what I want to do with Aurora a couple of years from now, talk about actually going. But I had basically for many years kind of just almost given up. And I can't say this without prefacing by saying it's one of the signal honors of my life, maybe the greatest honor of my life, to be quite good friends with Burt Rutan. I spend every 4th of July up there with the guy. And, and I was just sitting with him one night, and he was saying, Spaceship One was 2004, that's 12 years ago. He thought that within 2 or 3 years, by 2007, 8, or 9 at the latest, that there would be dozens of these things flying, Spaceship Twos, dozens. The companies were competing with each other. He said we gave Virgin America the contract, but to build them and the technology and the designs and all that other stuff, and Scaled became a contractor for them. But he said we made it part of the deal that crystal clear that you're not the only customer. If somebody else wants to come along and take a Spaceship Two too, then we're going to keep that option open for the good of the space flight thing. So I just want to say lately, it's been looking really promising and really exciting. I was very moved by that SpaceX recovery and all those young kids out there, those punk kids who I diss so much. There's some really great ones there, and I'm never going to get used to mission controllers in T-shirts, with Yoda on them. But that's my problem. It's not their problem. And so I'm starting to think that, we may be able to put it together. I have to tell you, watching SpaceX do it and watching Blue Horizons do it, it makes me think, do people in Europe or China get this? Europe especially, right? They're always telling, the EU's got a bigger GDP than America and blah, 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 they're smarter, blah, 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 blah. Does an average European look at this and say, these Americans, these are guys with their own money, not only not getting the help of the government, with the government basically standing in the way. These are guys taking their own money, and they're flying into space, and they're landing or doing things that they've never done. The Europeans have never put a man into orbit on their own vehicle. The Europeans. They've ridden on the shuttle, they've ridden on Soyuz, they've had astronauts, they've got a module up there, but they've never built never. I mean, after World War II, Britain had such incredible technological skill, and Germany, they've never built a rocket in a capsule and put somebody up in space. But frickin' Elon Musk is on his own dime, and a bunch of kids down in Hawthorne Airport are sitting there, and they're doing it. They've got this Dragon capsule. The Dragon capsule's flown without humans. They've been to the space station with unmanned capsules, just a matter of time. It is, Victoria, USA, exactly. It's amazing. No one else can do this. And I wish I was a little younger to be a part of it. Now, I'm not planning on going anywhere soon, but man alive, you can't get up there and keep doing it by throwing away all the good stuff. You just can't. I'm still a big fan of winged vehicles. I love them. But let a thousand flowers bloom, you know. I mean, sometimes a big dumb rocket's the way to get up there and or get stuff up there. Now what I'd like to see, what I'd like to see more than anything right now is I would like to see the private space sector get a reusable manned orbiter. I think while it was a worthy experiment and certainly worth the try, I think the experience of the space shuttle shows that a vehicle that takes people and lots of cargo is probably not the best bet. You can make compromises with a booster or a cargo launch that you can't make with manned vehicles, and by putting people inside the big dumb rocket, you're making everything too expensive. I think we ought to have a badass kind of a quick, orbital vehicle. I frankly think we ought to get a suborbital booster, a flying booster that gets up to 70, 80,000 feet, 60,000 anyway, 50,000, I don't care. And, maybe Mach 1 or Mach 1.5, and then you pitch off a hypersonic orbiter that's using air on a supersonic ramjet, on a scramjet to get it going as fast, as high as it can, close those front vents off, pop in some oxidizer, and just get 10 people, 6 people up into orbit, and then come back down, glide, refuel it, load it on the back of this thing, and send it up again that afternoon. I want to live to see that. And, if enough of you become members, we can build one ourselves. That's the whole idea of Free Frontier. Let me just say one thing about CSR, and then, I'm sorry, and connected to that, Chris Taylor was saying, what's the odds of really discovering another planet in our solar system? What should we name it? If so, should it begin with a P to make the old mnemonics work again? And somebody else had a question about that. Do we think there's a chance of discovering another planet in our solar system? I think we have discovered it. I think the announcement that was made a few days ago, was it JPL, that these gravitational anomalies in smaller objects cannot be explained unless there's a super Earth-sized planet out there, bigger than Earth, smaller than Neptune, in a very far and elliptical orbit. I think that is very compelling. And I think we're going to find it. That'd be great. Then we'd have 10 planets, because if it's bigger than Earth, it's a planet. If it's bigger than Mercury, it's a planet. Just had a thought that I never had before. Is Mercury technically a planetoid? Why not? Hard to say. In any event, there's a lot of cool stuff out there, and we can get to it. The thing that's most amazing about the Pluto probe is not the great images they took of Pluto, but it took 7-8 years to get the Voyagers to Jupiter, and it got to Pluto in 10 years. That thing was hauling ass, because it wasn't going to stop at the other end. And Delta V is everything. We've got the technology, we just don't have the will. So yes, to answer your question, I think I might have been born too early, and in a lot of ways too late. The hard part of my life is watching a country that is obviously in a state of decline and trying to turn it around. I think we can turn it around. You will never hear me say the best days of this country are behind me. I will never say that out loud. I will, to my dying breath, believe the best days are in front of us. Always believe that. Have to believe that. But yeah, it's hard. It would have been, every time I see things like The Revenant or World War II movies, or even in the 60s with the space program, which I can remember. I remember it was great to be part of a society where things were getting better every day, We were going faster and higher, and there was nothing we couldn't do, and things seemed to be running really well, and they were well organized, and the government knew what it was doing, and the government truly was your friend. They weren't trying to tell you what to do, and nothing was politicized, and you didn't have to go to geometry class and hear about who the teacher wanted to vote for, and it was, you could ride a bike without a helmet and all this other stuff that make me sound 1,000 years old. It's hard to watch all of this weakness and decay. But if I didn't think we could stop it, I'd be out someplace partying down and enjoying the collapse. And I don't believe that for a second. I think we're going to stop it. I do believe it. And I think you believe it too.